Hello, and welcome to episode 19 of Goalie Interference. I bought these things, so it should be better today. Mike, what is up?
Everybody that blame me every time. It wasn't me. It was Ken.
Turns
So
out
you
it
guys
was
send all
me.
your hate to Ken. It's all Ken's fault. Kenny says
Yeah,
it's
but
Ken's fault.
I look so much cooler now, though.
You look official.
Or do I?
Yeah.
It does. It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
I think you just look. You look very apropos for the moment. You can't really see. See, I've got mine.
Yeah, those are nice.
Yeah. But that's like they hide,
Nice.
sometimes I wear earrings sometimes and people think this is crazy. But
I
look,
thought that's what I saw there. Yeah.
yeah, I've had my ears pierced since I was 18. I rarely wear them. I never wore them on set or anything. I never really wore them when I played pro, but it's funny, man. Like, and let's be real about this. Like Ryan Reeves could wear earrings not all the time. Dustin Byfuglien
Yes.
wore earrings all the time. It's
Yes.
funny how there's a social acceptance to to black dudes wearing earrings, basically, right? Compared to
They
like
look good
if I walked into the locker room with earrings in, people would look at me like I had 8 heads.
Yeah.
You know?
Some white dudes look good with earrings. It's not impossible, but I mean, like you talk about the guys in the NHL, the guys that wear them. Like, what's the guy who's doing play by or color for the Seattle Kraken? He used to play
JT Brown.
He's great. He wears all sorts of crazy stuff, and every time I see him, I'm like, look at this. That looks perfectly right to me.
Yeah.
Some
I mean,
dudes are stylish.
Ronnie Duguay had the greatest hair you ever seen with a big old cross earring, and so it's just I don't know. It's funny. Like we lost a lot of our pizzazz between the 70s and the 2000s. Really, like the 80s just dumbed everything down, and then here we are. So, any case.
Let's start talking about the Golden Knights.
Let's do this. Yeah.
Let's start with yesterday's game. Before we go any deeper, let's start with yesterday's game. So I think there's many different ways to look at yesterday's game. There's a lot of layers to the game. There's Dad's trip. There's the first game out of the break. There's 10 days off. There's all these different things. There's stylistic matchup of Nashville. I think it's proven out for the last couple of years. It actually looks pretty good, that the Golden Knights tend to play pretty well against them. Then there's also, and I hate to do this because I know the Golden Knights have only won 2 times in the last 8 games or whatever it's been, but Nashville was bad. Nashville struggled skating. Nashville struggled passing. Nashville refused to shoot. Like all of these things were going on. Meanwhile, the Golden Knights looked like they had not been on a break. They looked like they were pretty buttoned up. All 4 lines were kind of doing the right things. 3 rush goals, 1's potentially goalie interference. Like there's a lot in that game. What's your overall takeaway of how much do you want to read into one good game on the road?
It's your typical case of you got to temper your expectations here. Okay. Like I actually thought the Golden Knights were a little sloppy at times, Ken. They were
defensively, I thought, yeah.
Yeah. So for everybody that's listening or watching right now, I gave Ken and Jason kind of a little rib towards the end of the game. I said, this is a hell of a performance because I knew Ken was going to freak when I sent it to him. And
I did.
And rightfully so, because was it a good offensive performance? Yeah, man, in a lot of ways.
On the rush.
Yeah. But I did think they looked a little bit loose, defensively. But that's typical. These long breaks, dude. Here's the reason. Let's face it. Here's the reason why Jaro Halak played for the Rangers, why Adin Hill played for the Golden Knights, is because these games, man, you're throwing your number 1 to the Wolves. Look at Saros. Look what he was up against. Some of the chances that didn't even go in last night. So it was a disjointed game. It was what I expected in that way. I expected Nashville to at least show up. They didn't show up other than the first 5 minutes. And their power play looked okay at times, even though it didn't generate a lot of chances. And I thought Vegas was a little loose on the PK, especially the first one. But overall, yeah, okay is being
it was.
But let me go down my list of my quick notes from this one. First, I thought Will Karlsson was awesome.
Fantastic.
I thought it's the hardest I've seen him play. And I don't necessarily mean skating. I mean, he was on the puck. He was on bodies.
His wall play is so underrated. He tugs the puck off the wall, rips plays off the wall, and starts rushes that it's most guys can't do this, and he's not considered a strong wall play type of guy. Same thing when he's F1. When he's the first guy in on the puck, they're probably coming out with it. He may not be the one who gets it, but he'll hold it up long enough. He was great last night.
Look at Amadio's goal. I mean, it's a quick play off.
100%. Yep.
It's Carlson. So I thought he was great, really good. I was happy. I was actually happy with the physicality of the team last night at times. You know, like Brett Howden he's not going to clobber anybody, but he's a big enough body that when he does utilize it along the wall, he lets the presence be known. And I thought he was pretty good in the capacity last night. That's in that way. I thought Zach Whitecloud really struggled through the first half of the game. He looked lost.
Not surprising.
Which
Not surprising.
You've missed months and months of action. It's from a break again.
Well, and the team's not buttoned up, right? Like,
right.
It makes it's a lot easier when everything's going the way it's supposed to go. Like, you know the system, you know what it's supposed to be. When they're not making the same plays and now you're jumping back in, good luck. Like, it would be good luck. There's just no way.
So I'm just kind of going through the laundry list here of overall things, right? I got to tell you though, Ken, like that, seeing what let's call it the third line. I don't even care what numbers these lines are. Just Stephenson with Carrier and Kessel. It's working, man. And I think it can continue to work. It's been the best option. Now, we haven't seen it a lot, but boy, that lines look good. So I'm encouraged by that. I'm encouraged that at least Eichel got some shots on goal, and he looked more engaged last night than I've seen in a long time. But we do have to temper it. We have to look at this and say, okay, it is one game. It's definitely something that they should look at and be proud of and think, hey, it's a clean slate. We can do this. We can repeat this. Because I think the work ethic was there. If they can get the defensive side to come with it, you're looking pretty good. But where's the top end going to come from? You're still waiting for that top line, man. And that's still going to be worrisome down the stretch.
I want to throw a little bit of cold water on the Carrier, Stephenson, Kessel line. And there's two bits of cold water that I'm going to throw on it. The first one is it's all Carrier. It hasn't been. I know Stephenson has a goal, Kessel has a goal. To me, it's all starting and ending with what Carrier does. When Carrier's going, when Carrier gets zipping through the neutral zone, when they dump it in and he's the first guy in, things go well. When he's carrying the puck out, he generated the first chance, he generated the second chance. He's the one who started the rush on the goal that Stephenson got that was goalie interference that they didn't want to challenge. Like, that's if we see it longer, if I see 5 games of it, 10 games of it more, and it stays that way and they keep going because this is what's bringing the best out of Carrier, okay, then I'll start buying it. But for now, I think it's mostly Carrier.
I won't disagree with you that Carrier is the driver. It's painfully obvious to everybody to see that. I love the guy.
He's great. Best player on the team.
Between Petro and Carrier. Like if you want to take guys that at this stage of the game, we did our grades, what they'd get for the year. Carrier wouldn't get an A+. He did have a stretch where it didn't really work and he was out for a while.
He's there now.
He's an A player for me.
He's getting there now, yeah, 100%. For sure.
But it's a sum of all the parts, man. Like, I don't think Carrier works, even though he is driver, even though so much goes through him. Without having players that can go with him, it doesn't go. It doesn't happen. So I mean, to me, you've got two people that can wheel now with Carrier and Stephenson, and you at least got somebody like Phil who's puck hungry towards the net. So I like this combination.
First goal is a flat out error by Roman Josi at the
terrible play.
He just completely
off they go.
Disaster. Yep. The second one is Carrier with a terrific stick lift on a pass that should not be headed that way. There's no reason that pass goes back. I said this in our Discord yesterday. Imagine if this game were flipped, how angry and upset my tweets would sound at this game because the other team was horrible. That second goal, and then Carrier is the one who gets the opportunity. And Nashville doesn't back check. There's 3 Golden Knights standing around the goal and 1 Predator, and that's why Phil ends up winning the battle to the puck and puts it in. The last one is a turnover in the defensive zone that Carrier comes out and makes the play. Like, I think you put any 2 players next to Carrier on that line last night, and they have 3 goals. Like, that's kind of how I feel on that one. The game before, they were better. They were more consistent holding the puck in the offensive zone. They were doing a lot better the other game. The second part is the second part of cold water is just it's all off the rush. When they've had the puck in the offensive zone, nothing happens. They zip it around the wall, and then it's just going back to the blue line. And then this is one of the topics I wanted to touch on that I actually didn't put on the rundown that I sent you. I don't think the blue liners have a good feel for what they're supposed to be doing. Nick Hague shoots it every single time he gets it. Shea Theodore won't shoot it ever. White Cloud is somewhere in between. Pietrangelo never shoots from the point unless it's like last gasp opportunity. Like I'm trying to figure out what the directive is from Cassidy and Stevens here on, okay, we've worked the puck in, we're holding it low in the zone, we come back out high, we have either one guy headed to the front, another guy parked in front, whatever. What is the directive? What is the plan on when do we want point shots and when do we not? Because I think they actually need to ramp it up a little bit. I feel more comfortable in the offensive zone possessions when Hague's out there shooting than I do when I know that they're going to recycle it.
Okay, so I think we're probably just going to disagree on the first cold water you tossed on it.
It's fine.
And that's fine. You know what?
And we got 10 games to figure it out.
And that's really what it's going to come down to. It's how these next 5-6 games play out. So and I could go either direction like you. So I believe that those three together are positive. So the second part, I don't think there's a particular directive, and I really don't believe that this happens very often in sports to just have, or sports is the wrong thing to say, but in hockey where, let's say they go to the defensive unit and say, hey guys, we're not going to shoot pucks. We're going to get to other players and get it to the net that way. I think
it started that way.
But I didn't ever experience this in pro though, Ken.
Okay. All right.
So the way this tends to work out is that once a system is put into place where you're trying to get it to certain players, the way your forecheck is, and especially knowing that Cassidy wants to be more of a half wall team, for whatever reason, that permeates the mindset of the players a lot of times.
Okay.
Now,
so it's not what you're saying is it's not a directive of, hey, you're not shooting. It's this is what we're trying to accomplish. This is where we expect to have the most success. So then the players at the back are like, wait, well, I could shoot this, or I could do the thing that was supposed to give us the most success.
I believe that's the right way to look at it, because I believe in their back of the head, if they still, like if Shea Theodore has a lane to shoot the puck, he's still going to get it there. But we're not seeing it a lot. I do agree. I'd like to see Shea shoot the puck more, because I still think he's top 10 D in the league at getting pucks through. He was so good at walking lines and doing that. And Petro, to me, I don't want to see him just be a hammer option and that's it. Like same thing. They're both pretty skilled at that, at getting pucks through. But you can also see how I'd love to see the stat on how many pucks Petro's gotten through that have been right on a goalie with nobody in front of him this year.
Right.
And if that's what we're doing, we're just wasting time here. So I think it goes both ways there.
They had that discussion, actually. I want to say after one of the home games recently, it was Pietrangelo, and it was then Cassidy afterwards. And the discussion was basically, we don't have enough of an interior presence, but part of the problem of why we don't have enough of the interior presence is that the pucks are not arriving at the same time as when the players are. And a lot of times
this isn't happening. Yes.
Correct. We have guys going to the goal and then the puck gets recycled. Or we have two guys coming to the goal and the puck was there too early because we ripped it on a one-timer. We didn't walk the blue line when we should have. And I just think that there is a level of, I don't know if it's disconnect or how I want to actually put it. But what I'll say is, like, it just seems like each pair is not on the same page. And so there are certain shifts where it comes back to the blue line and it feels real dangerous. Either he's going to make the right decision, recycle it back in, and we're going to have a chance from underneath the goal line, or we got two guys going to the goal and we're going to get a chance right off of this shot from the point. But then there's certain matches of this D pair with this forward line or whatever that just don't work. And I think we see it most with Smith, Carlson, and Amadio, which it has been recently. When they get a group that recycles the puck from the blue line, they're dangerous because you can't get it from those three. But when they get a group like Hague, that's how the first goal happened, when he's willing to shoot it and they don't have coverage for it or they don't have guys in the middle, it ends up coming out the other way and there's problems. It gets blocked in front. They don't have the bodies there. They're not lifting sticks to help the puck get through. I just don't think that it's matched. And I think the part of the reason for that is that there isn't a clear directive to shoot from there, that we are coming from a system where there was a very clear directive to shoot from there. And now it's not. And to me, you look at the way the roster is constructed at the moment, you need more from your points, from the points, from the blue lines. You need more offense from those players, whether it's activating into the offense or whether it's ripping shots from the point, because that's where you're going to get the most time and space with the way that the lines are set up currently. They don't have enough scorers.
It's a real chicken and egg, it is. Like, we don't have anybody going to the net, so we don't want to get it there. Well, when we start getting it there, nobody's there. So, until you get a lineup where you feel like you're going to have that presence, I think you still kind of stay forward with what you do. And I don't know, man, like it's one of those things that once you put a system in place, you largely stick to it throughout the year. Like, Cassidy's not going to look at this and change it, man.
Especially if you're in first place, like you have the most points in the Pacific Division, like you're probably going to lean that way, even though it's 17, 16, and 4.
Yeah, because I share the exact same, question marks and worries that, hey, if you shut down the rush, what else do you have? And I think, like, you saw him go stone cold for those games, but you can even look at, St. Louis is the other team that I follow all the time, right? Like Vegas and St. Louis, I don't miss their games. And St. Louis is kind of a similar team that if you take away the rush for them, man, they don't have anything, right? Like, and their depth isn't the same as Vegas's now. Like, Thomas and Kyrou were the two you had to worry about. And if you take away the rush with Buchnevich out and others, it felt similar to the Vegas. The thing is,
they're not a very good team either. That's the thing.
And they don't have this. They don't have Petro. Okay, like, that team hasn't been the same since Petro left. Straight up, end of story. That's it. And I think that even Theodore, you think about how much time he missed, he's still getting back in the swing of this too. So I don't think last night's win we can look at and say, hey, it's because they had the 6D in the lineup. That's an easy narrative that I do absolutely think should
14 shots.
Yeah. But I do think that it's something that's worth mentioning. But it's definitely not, to me, a driver of why that game was won. Like you say, they feasted on turnovers yesterday and they made them pay. And
it was almost unforced turnovers. Like, the first goal was terrific. The first goal was fantastic. Like, that goal. Makes you feel good about Amadio getting where he was. It's a great layoff pass by Smith. The play off the wall.
All of it, dude. It was a sick play.
Yeah, it was a great play. That's the type of goals that we look at and like, okay, this team can score again. And then there's Eichel. Let's just get into Eichel. But first, I'll tell you that goalie interference is brought to you by the Jimerson Law Firm. Jimerson Law Firm is one of Las Vegas's preeminent law firms specializing in high-stakes civil, business, and family litigation. When winning matters, just need to play the Predators more. Seek out the Jimerson Law Firm. If you need to play the Predators in a lawsuit, seek out the Jimerson Law Firm. They'll make the other team make unforced errors. I don't know if that's even possible. I'm not even sure I'm allowed to say that. That's the end of the read for the Jimerson Law Firm. The last two games, and I know it's 15 days ago or whatever it is now. It was a long time ago. But certainly last night, the game before the break, Eichel's getting chances. Eichel's hitting posts. Eichel's getting in tight. Eichel's making plays that are just a bit off to Marchessault a couple of times last night. It is now 1 point in 9 games. It is 1 goal in 10 games. Are chances enough? Like, do you feel like we're getting closer? Do you feel like this is real, that it's going to just break out and we're going to suddenly be back to, boom, point per game player? Or are we reasonably hoping that he becomes a half point per game player with Stone out?
Yeah, well, I found last night really encouraging for Eichel. And it's not just the shots on goal and chances; it's just his engagement, man. Like, and I thought he was closer to the puck more often last night. If he didn't have it, I thought that he was running better routes, not just defensively, but also in the neutral and offensive zone. Like, to me, he just looked hungrier last night. And I think that was kind of
game helped that.
Well, when it's run and gun, when it's open, it sure makes you look a lot better, for sure. But, I think you're going to have to look at this as, how he's played previously in his career. Like, what is Jack Eichel in terms of...
You ever looked at the splits?
And that's what I literally just pulled this up to see his propensity for going cold.
It's not that bad. Actually, that's not bad.
It's not. At his his best year when he put up over a point a game. I mean, he had one span where he didn't score for about 5 games, didn't have any points, right? And that was kind of it. That was in his best year. But if you go back to take one of his more recent years, that's a little bit down. Even that next year, well, it was still pretty high. So I mean, bottom line, he's not somebody that's gone completely cold like this very often.
No, I actually looked it up. He had never gone one game with 8 points. Or sorry, that would be nice. He has never gone 8 games with 1 point in his career. He has now never gone 8 games or 9 games with 1 point. However, here's the part that I want to point out. If you were to look at that game and you were to say,
anybody just see me sneeze on here?
I missed it. I was looking at the screen. Either way, if you were to look at that game and say, is that closer to an early season game or a late season game? It's clearly more of an early season game. It's a lot more open. There's a lot more unforced errors. There's a lot more not really living up to kind of the style of play that your coach wants. It really was kind of pond hockey for a little while out there. In his career, Jack Eichel, October, 55 points, 58 games, essentially a point per game player, just a little bit short. November, 71 points, 70 games, point per game player. December, 75 points, 70 games, better than a point per game player. Then the new year flips over, 65 and 75 in January, 63 and 72 in February, 60 and 74 in March. He turns into a 0.8 points per game player. You lose a point per each of 5 games. And it gets worse and worse and worse with the plus minus. We start going to minus 32, minus 21, minus 28, where he's positive. He's plus 9 in December. He's plus 21 in November. The games open up. He plays better. The game tightens up. He doesn't, which the problem I have with that is not Jack Eichel. It's that he's another example of that being an issue with the Golden Knights. You look at the Golden Knights splits over the course of their history. They slow down in scoring. When rush chances go away, they can't win. Even the run to the Stanley Cup final, they struggled to score against LA, and then they played 2 wide open teams, and they scored at will against Winnipeg and San Jose. They played a team that locks it down in trots, bam, out in 5, couldn't score. It's been the same way. When they play open teams, they score. Eichel has been the same. And the concern to me is that I think when you look at the schedule, they're playing a lot of teams in the West, a lot of teams in the thick of it, and a lot of teams that are going to understand how to play the Golden Knights. And my concern is I don't know he's the guy that's going to drag them out of that, which I think Stone would have been. And I don't think putting a shooter on his wing is what's going to drag him out of it.
I don't disagree. He's never been that player. He couldn't drag Buffalo into the playoffs. He couldn't drag Buffalo out of mediocrity, or not even mediocrity, being a poor team. He's just simply not the drive. Just because he was the best center available doesn't mean he's the best player out there, right? At his high water mark, Jack's a 30-goal scorer. And honestly, we're basing a point
per game,
and we're basing a lot of this on metrics from a couple of years ago. Really, we're basing it on 3 to 4 or 5 years ago. And I'll tell you what, the league's a lot different now than it was 5 years ago. This game has changed, right? Kirill Kaprizov wasn't in the league 5 years ago. There's a top player, like it just.
Jack Hughes.
Have you watched much of him?
He's fantastic. Hughes is awesome.
Jack Hughes is sick.
Awesome.
Like,
how much Beniers have you watched?
Beniers a decent amount. He's going to
fun to watch.
Well, he is. And he was a mess at the start of the year defensively. And now he looks like an NHL player, which is not surprising, right? He's out of college. It's his first year.
Yep.
I love seeing the progression of players like that. But, even looked at LA, let me ask you, this is a total hypothetical. It's a stupid question. It's not a great comparable. But if you had to choose between Kevin Fiala and Jack Eichel, who would you go with? It's a total hypothetical.
Same contract.
Winger, center. The contracts they're on, Fiala's making, I think, like 9.5. I can't even remember what he's at. Not 9.5, but he's at a big deal. Like,
I think I would take Eichel, but it would be close.
Yeah, let's see what Fiala.
I mean, it's not a slam dunk, which I think if you had asked people 2 years ago,
Fiala's at 7.85, 7.875.
Yeah. If you had asked that a few years ago, it would have been an absolutely not. And then this is a huge part of it. Justin brings up is Jack is slow on the power play, and they've switched sides. Like, the power play comes to a grinding halt when Jack Eichel's on the ice, and that's a problem because that cannot be the way you run your power play in the Cassidy system. It doesn't work like that. It has to move, and they've had success with the puck moving. I don't know how they fix that.
I would take Fiala. And again, we're talking about a center versus a winger. Fiala's under $8 million for what he does too, man.
He's good. He could play, yeah.
And yeah. Anyway, and that's a totally stupid comparable. It's like when people say, would you rather have a dinosaur head or a shark tail or something ridiculous like that, you know? Probably.
Are these like, wait a minute, I get this? Like, I get a dinosaur head or a shark tail, or like, I don't understand the question.
It's like, which would you rather have? Would you rather have a dinosaur head or a shark tail? Yes. Would you rather have a dinosaur head or a shark tail?
I guess I'll take a dinosaur head. I eat more stuff.
Sharks eat a hell of a lot.
What's a shark tail going to do? What good is a shark tail going to do? I can
swim. It would give you incredible speed in the ocean, Ken, or in Lake Mead.
Yeah, but if I have the rest of the human body, what is that going to do for me? If I have speed in the ocean, what good is that?
Have you ever seen the movie Waterworld? Have you ever seen the movie Waterworld?
I mean,
okay, you'll know when you do. Anyway, let's get back on topic here. Shit like this makes me happy, man.
It was a perfectly fair question. I just don't understand what the benefit of the shark tail is when you have a human body. All right, go ahead.
Anyway, but no, like the power play, yeah. Without the power play has been worse with Eichel. There's no way. Like it's slow. It's not what you need. Now I think it's better when he can at least. I think you have to minimize Jack Eichel on the power play. I think you have to get him the puck and
backwards, right?
But it's true. I think if it comes down to it, put that puck on Petro's blade and let him distribute, up top. Like, get Jack Eichel.
That's not how it works and the way Cassidy wants to do it. Like,
I get it.
They've never tried it in the middle.
My point is this: get Jack off of the left wing. Because
he's been on the right wing
that's right. And guess what? He hit the elbow on a pretty good shot last night where he was able to get closer. It's just, I'm not sure how often that's going to come. It's kind of like when they'd flip Max Pacioretty around, right? Patches would be like, he'd be good on the left wing for a while. Teams would figure it out. Then he'd go to the right side. He'd be good there for a while. We got to go back way. Thing is, Pacioretty can shoot the puck better than Jack can. Jack can shoot the puck, but he can't shoot it like Pacioretty. And Jack has to create by going towards the net with some deception and some movement, and that doesn't happen on the power play. So if your nuclear option is like your first option is take him off the left side, put him on the right. The nuclear option, yeah, put him in that bumper spot right in the middle. Even if it's
the goal.
But if you put him underneath the goal, you're going to get the same thing as you get on the left wing up top. He's going to get the puck on his blade. He's going to stick handle 8 times, look around, and then decide to kick it right back out to the point.
Put it back out. Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. It's a processor thing. It's how do you process quickly when the puck comes to you? And that you saw that when it went from Stone to Theodore to from Smith to Stone to Stephenson or Martian or who when they were snapping it around, like you just can't keep up with it. And we haven't seen that. And that's how do you speed up the processor of a player? I don't know how you can speed up the processor of a player. You can show them every piece of video. You can stand on that ice all you want. But I just did an off-ice session with a bunch of squirt kids that can't process throwing a ball to somebody 5 feet away from you and moving down a field rather than trying to go for a home run every time. They can't do it. They can't process it. No matter what I say to them, no matter what I show them, they can't.
An off-season could potentially help that.
Off season
I think an off season
you go home and work on your stride, brother.
Well, I get that. But I'm saying if that's the plan, I need you to be quicker on the power play. We need the puck off your blade. Like it just, you think about like any other situation. If I need you to process faster, NFL quarterbacks, point guards, whatever, it's a lot of it's just watching. I need to see this a little bit faster. And the thing is with Eichel, like, there's nothing he doesn't see on the power play. If you lift your stick up and it's in the wrong place, he's going to zip one across and make the play. The problem is when it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen because they're NHL penalty killers that he's playing against, there aren't seams to put the puck through. And it's all it does is he sits there and he buys all this time and they don't mind it. And then there's just nowhere to go. I think it's more forward motion. I wouldn't mind him underneath the goal. I think if you put him down there, there's going to be a little bit more pressure and he could potentially attract a little bit more like attention because he's closer to the goal. But like,
I don't mind him driving the net. I don't mind him driving.
I would love him driving the net. It's just, it's hard to do. And now you're going through three guys. Like there's just not enough room to drive the net from where he's.
And I'll tell you what, he's, as much as I'd like that, because I know he could turn out to the net and take it there, he carries the puck pretty far from his body. He's not a puck and tight to his feet type of guy. And some of the best players
sometimes. Yeah.
Oh, he's a bear like that, right? But his turning radius when you're going towards the net is a little bit different again because he handles it pretty far out in front of him. You know, and some of those players that are really slick and tight, like, I mean, even like a Jamie Benn or somebody, or even Corey Perry. Like Perry used to put the puck in his feet when he'd drive and protect it. And so it's kind of a different skill set. But I think because he's powerful enough, he could just create havoc in front if he did, you know. So
I just don't
like options there.
I don't like him in the bumper at all. I just don't think it's going to work, and I that's why I don't think they tried it.
Well, let me ask you this: do you really think that Cassidy is married to doing certain things in the power play, or do you think he'd be willing to move him around a little bit more than we've seen?
I think he's willing to move him around. I think he's willing to try to do different things with the personnel that he has, but I don't think that he's going to be able to create a power play where a guy stands on one of the half walls and dusts the puck off. I don't think it can come from the top either. I don't think he can generate a power play that's going to have any sort of real like distribution from the quarterback on the top. I think that's just quickly off to your left or off to your right. And if they take away both of them, then go straight up the middle with a shot and a high tip. Those are the three options. I think that's one of the easier positions to play. And I think we've seen that. Ben Hutton stepped in there and was pretty good. Daniil Miromanov stepped in there and was pretty good. Theodore comes right back in and is fine. I think that it's an easy position to play for guys of the skill level that these guys have when they get into the system. It's like, well, option A, option B, option C, hit it. That's it. Like where I think it's a lot different for the guy on the half wall, because the idea is I need it into the bumper. And I think there's a combination of problems, one of which is they're too slow. And then the second being they don't have an elite bumper player. Like they've put a bunch of guys in there. They put a bunch of different options in there. Stone was probably the best of anybody that was in there at different times. He also was bad at different times, but like, they don't have that clear Bergeron type of player, and I don't know how they're going to generate more without using movement. I think that's the way that this can get better is, okay, Eichel has the puck. Eichel's going to hold on to the puck. Let's move around him. Let's bring players to different positions, overload certain sides, open things up in different ways, and I haven't seen that at all in the history of the Cassidy power play.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I remember playing against the Boston power play just a couple of years ago, and just knowing how many weapons it had made me nervous.
And just options. It's all options. There's just so many different choices.
Like I remember like that was probably the best game I ever played in the NHL was against the Bruins. And that was when I was with Ottawa. So that would have been 2018. And man, like I was really proud of that game because I had several saves on that power play where pucks went totally through the middle. I got a good read on it. I got across in time. I corralled things. Like I felt really good about my reads and understanding what that power play was trying to accomplish, because I knew if I didn't know in advance, I was in deep shit. Right? Like this is a team you better study up, right? Because you got Pasta hanging over there. You got Marchand over here. Bergeron's milling. Like it was a lot to take in, man.
Was Krejci in front at that point?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So you had that whole group. And so, yeah, I just I wouldn't say fearful, but I was very much on guard with that power play. And I think like Vegas, do they have the personnel to do the same damage as Boston's? They just don't right now. When Stone's in the lineup, it's pretty close. Like we saw it.
Yeah, closer.
Because you know why? Again, it's the processor factor, man. Like even you mentioned Miromanov, and we got to comment in the chat. I totally agree that if you Miromanov, that guy processes offense.
Yep.
He does. You see him, he's got his stick out, ready, available. His feet are moving to get to open ice. He's talking. He's got his head up. He's all that. But boy, you're not just chucking that dude in the lineup to be a power play specialist, folks. Okay? You're just not. He's a year or two away from like, if ever, okay? This is always an if ever's thing. You never know what prospects are really going to make it. He's going to have to learn to play D in the NHL to be able to be effective. Because his weapon as a power play guy, there's really only one of those per team or maybe two defensemen that play that, you know? So in any case,
let's take this question before we get off of the power play. So is the answer making VGK players more like Boston or Cassidy adjusting? To me, it's the second one. I think they've got to find a way to do something to get Eichel more like to just build the whole thing around Eichel. Not many teams have a guy who you can pass the puck and no matter what they throw at him defensively, he gets around it. Like not a lot of teams have that. To me, it's movement. They've got to use more movement out of the bumper, more like changing positions from defense, dropping in, activating, bring the guys up, different options. Like how many times have we seen Eichel take the puck up to the top? It doesn't happen. Like, have you ever seen Eichel with the puck in the high slot on the power play? I don't remember a time I've seen it. I would love to see that. Let him circle. Let him do different things. That's my answer.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
We're going to have to, we are going to, I think the bottom line is we will see. Cassidy's way too smart to just look at this and go, well, hands in the air. Like,
I don't know what to do.
This is his baby, folks. Like, I have full confidence that this guy's going to try everything he can to get this thing going. It's just, what's it going to be and if it ever works? You know, and at some point, at some point, you know what? You can't just go one game and hope it works. Like, you got to give something a trial run for a couple games. So that's the hard part of being a coach, right? Is how long do I stick with something?
They can't afford to lose. Yeah, they can't afford to lose at the moment, especially these types of games. Game like tomorrow, you really can't afford to lose because that's potentially a team that you need to beat out, and you've got 3 games against them. We'll see how that goes. They're getting their asses kicked. The last I checked, it's got a little bit better now, 3-1. It is beneficial that the Golden Knights are sitting there in Minnesota right now, curling. And I saw that today. The dad's trip. They're out curling today, where the Wild are down in Dallas playing a game, and they're not going to get back up into Minneapolis until probably the other side of midnight. So that's a huge benefit. I think there's a huge schedule opportunity. Now, somebody asked, do we see Flower tomorrow? Yes, you will. Gustafson's playing today.
Yeah,
it's going to be Fleury. So speaking of like the, I don't know how to put it, like the emotional side of the game, right? Getting Fleury in there against the Golden Knights. Dad's trip. So we've got Dad's trip. The Golden Knights have been spectacular on Dad's trip over the course of the franchise history. 6-0-1, despite my trying to tweet out the standings last night. 4 different times I had to send out the same tweet because I screwed it up every single time. The 4th one I'm still pretty sure is accurate at this point. Nonetheless, 2 years since we've had a Dad's trip. The last Dad's trip they lost in overtime in Vancouver. That's the only time that they've ever lost a game on the Dad's trip. Is it as simple as my dad is here, I'm going to give it more than I normally give it on an everyday night, or is there something else to it?
I think the power of having your parents in the building is real. I am not the person that sits around and says that motivation is the thing that drives players very often, because I believe that your best driver is internal. Okay. This belief that the ghost of not Badger Bob, USA Hockey Miracle, the head coach whose name escapes me, and this is absolutely sacrilege for being an American, Herb Brooks. Herb Brooks. Yes. Like the days of a coach walking in and giving an amazing speech to pump the team up, folks, that doesn't work for shit. Okay. You give your team hope, you let them know what's going on, all this stuff, but motivation isn't how you win games. You win games by execution. But when your dad's there, when your mom's there, God damn if you don't want to play well in front of them, man. Like it really is real. It's kind of that same thing. Whereas if if you got a player who or a teammate or a friend that was like really hurt or something, right? Like you just go out and you got to win that game. Like
Eichel in
you
Buffalo.
really do feel these things as a player.
Yep.
And again, like I referenced St. Louis a lot. Well, St. Louis had a mom's trip this year where they were on fire. They should have never sent the moms home. It's the only time the team was good for a long stretch this year is when they had the moms. And it started in Vegas, I believe, actually, against the Golden Knights. Whether it factored or not last night, it takes a little pressure off the players too, because you know what? Your GM and your coach, they're not going to walk around being a giant dickhead with the parents around. Okay? That's reality. If they're pissed about something, if they're upset, they're going to go hide. They're not going to show it outwardly. And I'll be damned if players don't read the room. You know when your coaches, when your management, when they're upset, and when your pressure's on, when you're feeling heat. You don't feel that heat when your parents are there. It takes it off. And so I think that part was cool. I got a funny story, though, if you'll indulge me here for a little bit. And
fire away.
Yeah, so I'll give you this one. So I was on one father's trip, and it was when I was with Tampa, and it was actually really cool. Like they flew my dad in. We went to Charlotte for the week. We shared a hotel room. Like it's the first time my dad had ever seen a TV screen in a mirror in a bathroom. Because you stay in these like really nice hotels, and every time I stayed at a Ritz-Carlton, by the way, I just look around and laugh. Like
amazing.
It's the most superfluous thing on earth when you go to Montreal and the floor is heated in the bathroom and the bidet has 20 settings. Okay. It's just insane.
Well, you need
like, it doesn't make, well, depending on
you need
them. Yeah. So in French Canada, you do. But
sometimes 16, like that 16th setting, I just don't feel like it did the job. It's the 17th one that's key for me.
So Ken, that's disturbing. I'd like to make sure that you don't mention anything like that ever again on here. You can leave that to your own deep, dark thoughts. But in any case, it was just really cool, man. Like my dad and I got to share that, and I didn't expect it. I had joined the team like pretty much right then, and a week or two in advance, and it was kind of like, bang, can your dad come? Yeah, absolutely. Flip side to it, when I was with the Senators again, 2018-19. We were going to have our dad's trip at the end of January or mid-January. And I actually just had this come up in my memories on Facebook, which is not public by any stretch, by the way. That's my one private thing that I do on social. But I remember seeing it, and I had to buy my dad's own airfare to come in for the father's trip with Ottawa. That's how cheap this organization. Like, it's actually an embarrassment that they wouldn't. You want to host a dad's trip, but you won't fly them in. Like, it's actually insulting to the players in some ways when you do that. It's like, how cheap are you when everybody else is doing it, right? And so, and I get it. It costs money, but that's just Mickey Mouse shit. So I had to buy the ticket. They had it lined up. Well, guess who got traded like a week and a half before, right? So I had to eat the ticket. And here's the thing. I had managed to find a way to kind of like cheap out on this a bit because we were actually finishing up the dad's trip in St. Louis, my hometown. So dad was just going to fly up to Ottawa or meet us wherever it was. Like, I don't think he would have flown into Ottawa. I think it was somewhere in the States, but they would have met us in a city. He would have been with us for a couple of days, and I would have dropped him off on his merry way in St. Louis and, saved a couple bucks. It would have worked out great for everybody. And I ended up that my ticket was non-refundable. I had to eat it. Like, it was one of those things that just stuck out from that season that I forgot about until I saw my memory. There were so many things that went wrong that year, like on a personal level, that those things you forget about. So in any case, they're just, I think they're pretty amazing when they do it for the guys, and it's fun to see
when they do them. Like, do the dads sit in on like power play meetings and stuff? Like, are they there everywhere? Like, they're not in the locker room when we go in the locker room, but are they?
Well, it depends on your team. I mean, they're not in there like post game, having beers with the guys or something. But like, we would have, if I remember right, Talk had like specialized meetings for the parents, right? Like, we did our own stuff, and then they kind of basically did the meeting again for the dads.
Right.
And I think they
sense.
probably gave him the Cliff's Notes version and didn't give away any trade secrets probably, but it was they just kind of want to give him a taste for what their kids do, Yeah. And it's kind of like a bring your kid to work, show them around type of thing, which was, yeah, man, I'm all for that stuff. I love it.
I think it's great. I mean, I think everybody would agree. Like, there's no reason not to do that type of thing, and it clearly has an impact. Like, I usually need a bigger sample size than 6-0-1 for me to say, like, this is it. This is what needed to happen. And like, you look at a lot of these games, they're LA, Arizona, Vancouver, San Jose, Nashville a couple times. These aren't elite teams that they're not going down to Tampa and Carolina to go on a dad's trip, even though that dad's trip does sound better to me than with Minnesota for 2 days. Nonetheless, the one thing I did find interesting, and I want your opinion on this. So year 1 and year 2, they were back-to-backs. So they went to Nashville, then Dallas. Then the following year, it was LA and Arizona. So there's flights in between both of those back-to-backs. They play the very next night, back to Vegas, dad's trip over. The following year, that was 19, they played on the 19th and then the 22nd in San Jose. 3 days in between, or about 2 off days, 3 days in between the games, 2 off days in between. This time we have 1. Today I saw them out curling. I remember that last one. I think they went fishing or something back in that one or something. I don't remember exactly what they did. Is there too much time? Like, can you get away from hockey to the point where it's like, hey, fellas, we need to focus? Like, I have a little concern with, like, what's going to happen tomorrow night.
Well, we'll see. The best part
last time they played great.
Like, some of the dads just get buckled on these trips.
Like, so where are the players when that happens? Because I'm assuming there are some fun dads. Like,
some of them just
they're there or no? Do the players show up to these?
And that's what
I'm assuming they're dinners.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume dinner. I think, like, here's the thing: like, some of these outings and excursions are really meant to be just for the dads or moms. Like, if you have a day off, yes, you can do some of these things, but typically they're pretty optional for players. Like, if you don't want to go curling and you got a game the next day, stay home. Like, a lot of it is actually supposed to be meant to be like kind of bonding for the dads. So they're kind of getting their own trip within a trip, right, where they get to bond with the other dads. That's part of it. So it's kind of a mixed bag. It depends on your team, from team to team as well.
I'm looking back on it and, like, okay, they went to San Jose in 2019 and won in San Jose in 2019. San Jose blew in 2019, so I'm not all that impressed by that one. I'm just wondering, okay, you've got this game, and then let's talk about tomorrow's game. So schedule-wise, it's about as good as it gets. Like, you're on a road game. You've got the extra day off. The other team's playing – this will be their 3rd game in 4 nights when they play tomorrow night. They're going with Fleury, so we'll see how that goes. That team can't score either. They can't score again tonight against the Nashville team that I'm assuming is playing a little bit better tonight than they did against the Golden Knights last night. They're playing Dallas.
Minnesota's playing against Dallas, and Dallas is at 3-1. And
3-1.
Reeves and Ryan Reeves and Jamie Benn just had a big FU match. It was awesome.
So how big of a benefit do you think it is being in Minnesota early with the dad's trip, being there, having this day off up in Minnesota? Meanwhile, the team you're playing against in their home building, a place the Golden Knights have not been great, and against a team the Golden Knights have not been great against historically. I think it's a pretty good benefit. I think they're going to win the game. I think they're going to win the game easily too.
The moment I looked at the schedule, I went, this is really good for Vegas, timing-wise.
So is the next game, and so is the following game.
Yeah, I mean, they've got some time off, but then wait till you get to March. Holy cow.
Well, the back end of this month and March is brutal. Like, it's very possible they win. They could very easily win 5 of 6 to start this month and then not win again until mid-March.
Yeah, and even, like, looking at the way that lineup was last night made me feel a little bit more optimistic, right? Like, I was even starting to worry this team could really, like, make playoffs, and I still think that there's some concern with as good as some of these teams are in the West, but this is a tough matchup for Minnesota tomorrow, coming off a back-to-back, especially against Dallas, because Dallas can skate and Dallas can punish you.
Grind you.
Right? Yep. They're a very well-rounded team that way. I mean, Jamie Benn's, knocking them through the boards, and we've all seen what Dallas does. You don't have to tell Golden Knights fans. Yep. So it should be on a platter for the Golden Knights tomorrow. What you have to be concerned about is that Minnesota is going to have – Minnesota in the first 10 minutes will have punch drunk legs. Like they will have them. This happens every time. Like you're at home, it's your second game of a back-to-back.
Especially
you
off
can't
a
wait
loss.
you just can't wait to get out there. The Golden Knights absolutely can't allow the first goal again. I don't care what the game looked like against Nashville. Minnesota's a better team than Nashville. Minnesota's having a hard time scoring, but Minnesota's a much better team. Nashville's all UC Saros. I don't care what anybody says. It's UC Saros. Minnesota's going to push off the bat. And if Vegas gets behind and they start getting into the perimeter, oh boy, now we can't get the rush going. Here we go again. It's going to go south for them quick. So that first 10 minutes is key, that it's not matched Minnesota's intensity. It's run them out of their own building. Like it's, I'm starting Will Carlson's line. As much as I liked, I thought Waugh and Howden especially, I thought Kolesar didn't have a very good game with the puck, at least last night.
Well, if you read the story, by the way, the story that Lawless wrote that's up on GoldenKnights.com is terrific about Kolesar's dad passed away, and they made arrangements to make it so that it's better for him, and it's really good. And I don't blame it. Of like, if he didn't have a very good game, like there's kind of a reason for it.
Sure. Oh yeah, and I'm not taking that away at all. And I saw that too. That was a really good piece. And by the way, for anybody out there, it's pretty cool to see. Gary was pretty excited because his daughter won a tournament in Nashville this weekend with their 12U team. And I had a friend of mine there whose daughter won the 14U version, and they all wear cowboy hats. Anyway, I thought that was really cool. It's nice to see like Gary with a big smile, especially just because it's, hey man, it's your daughter. I get that same feeling. But they're going to have to be good off the start, period. Because I don't see against Minnesota, as hard as they can play, are you going to come back on that club?
Well, and they know, like, Minnesota's a team. Nashville's never figured it out. You look at all the games they played against the Golden Knights. Nashville's never figured it out. Certain teams have figured it out. This is one of them. One of the best examples is the Islanders. The Islanders have always had the Golden Knights figured out. They've always played them the same way. Their collection of players has not changed all that much. They play the same.
And you've seen them during the Trotz era, though, too, for the most part. And Lane Lambert's an extension of the Trotz era.
This team knows how to play the Golden Knights. Doesn't mean they always beat the Golden Knights. Doesn't mean the Golden Knights can't come out and rip some shots by whoever's in there early. The Golden Knights can beat this team. Like, there's no doubt about it. But they are one of the teams that knows how to play that grind them down system. And I completely agree with you. I'm going beyond you saying they need the first goal. I don't think it can be tied for that long. I think they need to get on the board and be ahead by the end of the first 10, 15 minutes of the game, because the longer it goes tied, the more it's going to come right back in their heads that we can't score again. So, And granted, the other team can't score either. So maybe we do end up with a New York Islanders game where there's 72 goal scoring chances and no one gets one. But
here's your matchup. This is going to be what determines this game. It's going to be, so they got Joel Eriksson Ek has actually been playing more third line for this team now instead of second, which is kind of surprising. He's always been the bellwether player for me with the Minnesota Wild. When he's plus in a game, they win. And I first started to notice this during the playoff series between the Golden Knights and Minnesota, because remember how good he was? Like, Eriksson Ek was just so good against him. And I kind of carried that into last year when I was really watching Minnesota and St. Louis closely in the playoffs. And it was the same thing. It was Ryan O'Reilly against Joel Eriksson Ek. It was the canary in the coal mine, right? Whichever one of those two dudes is plus. So Eriksson Ek's playing with Greenway and Foligno this year. So that's a big time grind line. Like, big time grind line.
And then what's the matchup there? Like, how does that match up? Which team, which line do they play against? It's gonna be tough,
Exactly. And that's, to me, if that's the third line, if that's Carrier, Stephenson, and Kessel, it's going to have to be an incredible game to go up against them, because I don't trust Phil with playing against those guys.
Nope. I'm not sure I trust Stephenson playing against those guys.
Because as fast as Stevie is, and as good as he is, as good as he is with the puck on his blade when he's moving, Will Carrier is not going to get that to him, right? And so that matchup makes me nervous. Now, do they try to put him against Carlson, Smith, and Mario? I like that matchup a whole hell of a lot better.
for sure.
But then you flip around though, and you kind of go, oh, okay, so now we're going to stick Eichel against Steele, Boldy, and Gaudreau. So who's going against the top line? Hartman, Kaprizov. Who's going against Kaprizov and Zuccarello? Who's going against them?
Carrier, Stephenson, and Kessel. Yeah. And they don't have the choice. Like it's Minnesota's choice. It's a road game.
Right. So this is why I kind of am worried about it, where they're going to have to jump on them early, because Minnesota's matchups, I think, are problematic for the Golden Knights.
I'll have to watch the goals. I'm interested. Like I know that in the last couple of games before the break, Nashville's goals were usually loose goals, like they gave up last night to the Golden Knights. Teams that are giving up the loose goals tend to do the same thing to a team that's looking for those. The Golden Knights are going to be looking for them. That's how they generate most of their offense. So I'll watch these 3 goals after we're done here to kind of get a little bit more of a piece of that. The kind of one of the last things I want to talk about is these 10 games. So we came out of the break. We have 10 games before March 3rd. There's actually a game on March 3rd. That game is going to be played after the trade deadline. So that game does not count. The decision's going to have to be made prior to March 3rd's game against the New Jersey Devils. Good luck in that game. Nonetheless, my question to you is, you have a 13-2-0 start. That is the main reason why you're in the playoff picture at this point. There's no way around it. They are in the playoff picture because they beat the shit out of bad teams in October. That's a fact. Since then, they've been an average to below average NHL team for the past 3 months. Now, you've got 9 games left from right now, heading all the way in. There are 3 games against garbage. They play Chicago, they play San Jose, and I believe they play Arizona. I can't remember who the last one is, but I know it's another bad team. There's 3 games against bad teams. There are then a few games against good teams. There are then these 2 games, the Nashville game. We're not really sure what to make of it. If they're 8-1-1, 8-2-0, do you throw all the chips in? Like that, can it change your mind? Like, I guess my question is, how much do these 8 games actually determine what's going on? And then how safe is it to allow that to be the case and throw the last 35 games in the trash?
For me, it doesn't matter a bit. For the front office, I bet it matters. For ownership, I think it really matters, because if there's
belief.
a great,
it's garnering belief. Yep.
If they come out of this and they win 8 games, 6 out of 8, 7 out of 10 against some of these bottom feeders, history is going to tell us that there's a lot of excitement with this club and belief. And it's not looking at Seattle in the last 2 games of the year and the bear of a schedule in March and the rest that's coming at them. And there's still a lot of hockey left after trade deadline. It's 5.5 weeks.
It's hard hockey. It's hard hockey. Like that's the
March
part that gets to me.
March doesn't have. I'm looking at March now. March has 2.5 layup games tops. Not even. There's one against Columbus. There's one against Montreal.
There's 2 days in between games twice the entire month. Yep. They have a game and then a day off and then another game every single day. And there's 2 back-to-back or 1 back-to-back in the middle of that. Like, it is brutal. And by the way, this team experiences injuries when they go through brutal stretches.
Yeah. So
like, that's going to happen. They're not going to have their full complement of players all the way through the end of March. Not going to happen.
So bottom line, I think I answered your question. For me, it wouldn't matter. I would still stick to the same game plan that we talked about last week. I would love to add a depth winger that you could control into the future if possible. I would love that.
I think 8 would change my mind.
Yeah.
I think 8 would change my mind. 8 up. 8 down doesn't change my mind at all. Like, my mind right now is sell. I think the plan is to find a way to start getting towards next season. I don't think you're going to win this season. I value 1 round of playoff, none. Like, I don't value it at all. Heck, I don't even really value winning a playoff round. They've done it. They've been there. I do not value it. It just means nothing to me. And I know that's not common. That's not common thinking. I get that. The only thing I want's a cup. But I'll tell you this. If you beat Minnesota and then you beat Anaheim, and then you beat San Jose, and then let's say you go to overtime and lose to Tampa, and then you beat Chicago, and then you beat Calgary, and then you beat Dallas, and you lose on the road in Colorado, and you're now 7-1-1, beat Carolina at home, 8-1-1 with wins against Colorado, Calgary, Dallas, like Minnesota, Nashville. If all that happens, all right. The whole chip in a chair thing, we got a chip in a chair. We still have a shot to win the poker tournament. Okay, fine. I'll buy it. But 7-3-0, I don't think does it for me. Because now you're looking at you're 3 points ahead of a point per game over the last 45 games. That just doesn't do it for me. So that's where I really think they have to be smart about this. Because you look at this schedule, it is screaming. It's screaming for winning 4 out of 5 and losing 4 in a row. If you look at all of February, we're all going to agree, 10, 11 points would be great. 12, 13 would be fantastic. But if you sit there and after 4 games, you have 8 points, now you're going to be saying, 16 would be good. 13, 15 would. I think that they got to be careful to not overblow wins against Anaheim, San Jose, and Chicago, that if you get all 3 of them, you're going to feel real good, because that's at worst 4 wins in 6 games. If they were to do that from right here, it might be 5. They got to be careful with that. I just don't think you can allow that to overdo it.
I agree. Think about this March schedule, though, man. It's insane. This is 3, 7, 8, 12, 13. It's 15 games in March.
Yeah.
There's your reason, number one, why Patrick Kane really shouldn't work for this club, right? If these
1,
guys
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 playoff.
If you're going to acquire somebody who's had a bum hip like Patrick Kane this year, you better be getting if you're picking up a player, you need a healthy player. So anyway, I don't think I would differ at all. I can see why 8 wins in a row would, and I know that would definitely give a lot of juice for sure.
You're probably not getting 8 wins in a row, by the way.
No, I don't think. They're ripe for a couple blowups here and there, just given the last game. And anyway, I don't know. You know what? This road trip, though, dude, Florida to Tampa to Carolina to St. Louis to Philly. Okay, so let me just put this in perspective. They play Sunday night at home against Montreal. Then they have to fly to Florida. Okay, so if you've ever, people in Vegas know that's a 3.5, 4. That's actually a 4-hour flight.
5. That's 4.5 to 5. Yeah.
And you're changing 3 time zones, folks.
I've done it many times. Yeah.
It's not fun, and you're doing that on Monday. You got to play Tuesday night against Florida, who is big time resurgent right now. Barkov did leave the game the other night. That's worrisome for them. Then you got to flip it around. You're going to Tampa. Okay, the travel easy, no big deal, but it's Tampa. Okay, then you're going to Carolina. Again, travel's not too bad. Hop that bird, you're there in a couple hours. But it's Carolina. And then that night you fly to St. Louis. Dude, Carolina to St. Louis is another 2.5-hour flight.
2 time zones. Or one.
It's one time, but it's a 2.5-hour flight. You play in St. Louis. You get back on that bird on Monday, and then you fly to Philadelphia, which is a 3-hour flight.
Oh, and that Sunday game against St. Louis is early. It's only an hour,
and
but
so
it's
a Saturday.
It's not a 7 o'clock. It's not a 7 o'clock start. Yeah.
So
the Saturday game is a 7 o'clock start.
You do those 2 things, Carolina. And then you go home and play Calgary. Dude, This is the stretch from hell. This is I'll tell you what, Ken, if they win 6 of those games, there's 7 games there. If they win 5 of those games, I will be most impressed man on earth.
Yeah, it should change your opinion, but that's too late. They have to make the decision prior to that.
That's right.
Yeah, they have to make the decision prior to that. And the stretch going into this is where I actually think it falls in a pretty nice spot now that I'm kind of looking at this a little bit more. You have to be happy this thing's not falling next Wednesday, because if your games coming out of this are beating Anaheim, beating San Jose, and beating Chicago, you got 6 points on the board. Yeah, you're going to be feeling a lot better about yourself. But if you're making a long-term decision on that, now afterwards, home game Calgary, home game Dallas, go to Colorado, home game Carolina, now you're going to have a better feel of what you are. You're going to have especially if they can stay healthy through this. That's going to be crucial. Like, we know what an injury does. We know what already the Stone injury does. One more injury to any player of significance, and they're not as good as a lot of these mid-range teams. I think they looked like a better roster than Nashville last night. But I still question, you have 3 lines where, to me, there's a player you're dragging a line on all 3 of your top 3 lines. I don't know that works against teams with decent depth. And that's, I look at that and I say, how is it going to go against Calgary? How's it going to go against Dallas? How's it going to go against Carolina, New Jersey, Colorado, Tampa, all these teams that are coming up? Yeah. I really think they have to be cautious of what these 10 games tell you. You have to think of what the past 40 have told you and understand that, like, we cannot just throw everything, because what inevitably could then happen is you throw everything at it. You go on that brutal strip that you're talking about, go 1-4-0 through that, and you're right back at a point per game, right back on the cut line, and all the pressure in the world is on this team. I think they can relieve pressure by not going nuts here at this deadline. I think it actually would show a little bit of, hey, we think you guys can do it without help. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I still think taking the big swing is not the right.
Probably it's what they're going to do, though.
Probably,
and it's wrong. Yeah,
I don't want to get rid of that first round pick. I don't care how low it's going to be. This is a pretty deep draft, and I just don't. I don't think it's the right way to go, man.
Completely agree.
Anyway, so let's look at this week ahead now. Let's do it.
Let's make some picks. They play
we only have 2.
Minnesota tomorrow. Yeah, Minnesota tomorrow, and then Super Bowl Sunday. God damn it, please stop playing on Super Bowl Sunday. I'm sick of this bullshit. We do it every single year. It's so dumb. I hate it. Nobody's going to want to go to the game. They're playing Anaheim. Stupid. Okay, but we're playing Anaheim. I got 2 wins, and I got 2
games on trade deadline. That's dumb too.
Agreed.
Bill Daly actually answered that question, that that is something that they would consider at least at these last meetings, and I think they should.
Yep, it's dumb.
I've been traded when I had a game. I thought 3 hours later. It sucks.
Yeah, it's stupid. It's dumb. Yeah. I got 2 wins. I got 2 easy wins. I think they're going to win tomorrow's game by multiple goals, and I think that they run Anaheim off the ice with like 55 shots.
First off, I want to know if people like my curly hair, because I have very naturally curly hair. It's kind of long right now.
Somebody commented on the lack of hat.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm just running the curls. I could have done this on air, but I decided against it when I was in Vegas. I wanted to keep my very, very consistent look on air.
Right.
I think they have a really good matchup in Minnesota tomorrow, but I think Minnie's going to be pretty tough to beat. So I'm going to say that they take the game in extra innings for once. They haven't had one of those in a while. I think they get an OT win. But I think it's going to be
got an OT win in a while. They've got it to overtime a couple times here.
Yeah. I know. That's what I mean. So against Flower too. I'll say they take it in overtime. 3-2 maybe. Seems appropriate. Yes. Okay. Anaheim, they better win that game. You have to win that game. Yeah. So I think that this is a pretty comfortable stretch right here. The schedule favors them. I like the way this looks. I like the way this looks clear up until that Tampa Bay game. So
yep. And then you don't.
And then
it gets difficult. Yeah, then it gets difficult. Like the Chicago road game, they should do it okay in that game. Calgary at home, Dallas at home, Colorado on the road, Carolina at home, New Jersey at home. Oh boy.
Yeah. Like I'm disappointed that this
tough.
I'm disappointed that the St. Louis game is in a back-to-back, man. It just that's a bummer. Like especially like I wonder if people watching or have been in on this, and Ken, maybe you have, but some of the Roman with Jones segments on AT&T Sportsnet. So Jones,
I've seen a couple of them. Yep,
he's one of the videographers, camera guys that travels around. He's doing unbelievable stuff, man.
He's great.
Jonesy's amazing. Okay, this guy's awesome. So I you know what? This is gonna be my story time to close this. So
okay.
Some of the people that I got to be close with in Vegas happen to be who some people would consider ancillary to the cause. People that I consider to be just as important.
Far from that.
Yes. Friends. Yes. Okay. And Chris Jones is one of them. Okay. Chris Jones operates cameras. He puts together a lot of the video segments that are done. When I did the Golden Knights, when I did the nightlife segments where I was on the ice, doing full analysis and diagramming things, it was Jonesy and I that did that together. I had the ideation process. I kind of produced it to a certain extent, let Jonesy take over and run it. And that was some of the most fun I ever had. Loved it. Like we did one with Darren Eglin. That was awesome. We did one with Darren Elliott. That was just awesome. Loved doing them. And Jonesy was behind those. So Jonesy somehow managed to get this deal where he could do Roman with Jones or whatever, Roman with Jonesy or whatever. And he's gone to all these places and made really cool videos. But the long story that filtered down here is before I left Vegas a couple of years ago, and thinking I'd be coming back again, frankly, Jonesy picked me up and we went out and took the tour, just two dudes, of all the old school spots in Vegas. Okay.
Nice.
And because Jonesy's from Vegas, man, he's the real deal Vegas guy. And we get along well because we're both kind of like old music dudes. He's kind of more a punk guy. I'm a metal guy, but we get some crossover and tattoos and stuff. And I had so much fun that night. And we went to all the old school spots around town.
Where'd you go? What are the old school spots you're talking about? Like mob
It was
museum?
just some of the. It was what'd you say?
Golden Steer.
Like in that area, like that old Vegas area, like just some of the bars down there that are more local spots. And I can't even remember all of them. I can't remember the names, right? It was just that one night and a lot of places I didn't know. But I'm so thankful for that experience that I had. Like just that one night with Jonesy hanging. We went to the Tiki Bar. That's what it was. We started off at the Tiki Bar where Nicolas Cage always is, that I can't remember the name of, and smokier than shit. And like, that's the type of people sometimes you run into that to me are so interesting and so fun to be around and have zero ego. And he's such a valuable person, and I think people,
great. He's awesome.
And I just, sometimes people like that don't get enough credit. They may not want the credit, but I like highlighting people that work their ass off and come up with creative things. And like I say, Jonesy deserves a lot for what he's done. And I don't think he's gotten nearly enough credit or been valued. And man, it was Frankie's Tiki. There we go in the comments, man. So anyway, that's my story. It's just that I had a ton of fun just going to the spots in Vegas that I really didn't know about. And I had a local to show me, and it was my buddy who was a cameraman, right? And to me, cameraman's the same as he's my teammate. He was my buddy. He is my buddy, and it's kind of a bummer when he comes to St. Louis here that he's going to do a Roman Jones, and I might be able to open the door for him to film at a place, and say hi and hang a little bit.
I hope you do. By the way, what's it like to have no ego? You said he has no ego. What's that like?
Well, I have ego. I mean, we all have.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wouldn't know. Would have no idea. That's all.
It's nice in life to work with people without ego. And
yeah,
it's really cool.
Sorry, you have to work with me.
Well, I deal with it.
It's one of those things you just, it's like one of those drawbacks. Like, I'll deal with it.
I'll tell you what, that's one thing I liked. And I think probably kept my career going I like this about the minor leagues when I played in the American League, is that the egos there were a lot different to me than the NHL.
You kind of have to check them a little. Yeah.
Yeah. And because you'd get these hotshot prospect kids that thought they were the cat's ass. And that's why you had veterans in the American League, was to tell these kids, you're not in the national yet, and you haven't earned shit. Just hang, dude. Just be one of us. You're going to be fine. And in the NHL, you definitely... You got some prima donnas, you got some egos, but
no,
the guys, but you know what though? Like you can usually tell who it is pretty quickly, and like when I skated with Vegas, when I'd practice with them those couple of years, there really weren't many egos there. You know why? Because the guys were all castaways, man. Like they had to earn, most of those guys had to earn everything they had. Now, that you can't say that about the room now, right? It is a different dynamic. So, yeah.
And with that, I'll tell you that the Jimerson Law Firm always sponsors every episode of Goalie Interference. We'll be back next week. I don't believe they play on Wednesday, correct? They do not play on Wednesday. We will be back next Wednesday for episode 20 of goalie interference. Find Mike's work. I should mention this more because you write stuff all the time, and it's good stuff. And you can find it at dailyfaceoff.com. It's terrific. And you should read a lot of Mike's stuff. Go ahead.
I appreciate that. I actually did have a piece out yesterday that also chronicled the Vegas Golden Knights and some of the things we've already talked about. So you're probably not missing much with that. But I did hit a couple other teams. Tomorrow I'll have a piece. Tomorrow being Thursday, I'll have a piece out diagnosing Jacob Markstrom of the Calgary Flames, in which I'm actually going to say he hasn't been as bad as people think.
Ooh, which is not good news for the Golden Knights.
I've watched every goal he's allowed this year. So
that sounds like a lot.
Anyway, this was good.
Now I'm gonna go head off and try to come up with something that I'm gonna write. Nice of you to have a topic idea that you already know what you're writing about. I have no idea. There's gonna be something on SinBin tomorrow morning that I've written. I don't know what it's gonna be. I'm gonna go figure that out and make dinner. Good night, everyone.
Goodbye.